Hello YouTube, welcome back to my channel. For those of you new here, my name is Allie DeAndrea. I'm a hunter, an angler, a public lands advocate, lover of all things outdoors. Welcome to my channel. Today, we are talking about the differences between a compound bow and a traditional bow to help you navigate which one is a better fit for you if you are interested in getting into archery. So without further ado, let's jump right in. So the first thing that I want to talk about is the gear needed for each type of bow. For a traditional bow, you're really just looking at the bow itself and the string. Some folks like to wear a shooting glove or use a shooting tab as well. But other than that, that is really all you will need on your traditional bow to make it operational. For a compound bow, there are a lot of additional pieces of gear that you need to get it up and running and ready to shoot. You'll need a rest, a sight, and a release at minimum. There are other things like peep sights and quivers, etc., that are additional pieces of gear that you will need to get shooting with your compound bow. Compound bows and traditional bows also shoot very differently. Compound bows have the ability to shoot very far distances. High-level archers can shoot 100 yards or even further very accurately with a compound bow. Now, for most average people, including myself, accuracy really starts to fall off beyond 50 or 60 yards for most people. Traditional bows, on the other hand, do not have the same distance range as compound bows. For most average people, accuracy falls off beyond 20 yards when shooting a traditional bow, or frankly, sometimes even under 20 yards. We'll talk about the learning curve for each of these bows in the next segment, but just know it's a lot harder to be very accurate when shooting a traditional bow. When it comes to the sort of learning curve, traditional bows, for the most part, are a lot easier to pick up and learn how to shoot. It's definitely within reason to learn from home by simply watching videos online. But to learn how to shoot a compound bow for the very first time, I'd really recommend going to your local archery shop. You need someone there to help you learn in person because there are just more safety concerns, frankly, when it comes to shooting a compound bow, especially for the very first time. I've heard this analogy used for skiing and snowboarding that I think applies to the compound bow, traditional bow learning curve. When it comes to skiing, for most people, it's really easy to learn how to do, but it's hard to become excellent. For snowboarding, the opposite is true. It's hard to learn, but once you learn, it's easy to become excellent. For a compound bow and a traditional bow, the traditional bow is easy to learn, but hard to become really good. And the compound bow is a little harder to first learn, but once you learn, it's easy to become good. That probably just got jumbled all in your head. Let's talk about maintenance. A compound bow will require a lot more maintenance than a traditional bow. Compound bows have a lot of moving parts which need to be tuned perfectly. You'll probably have to take a compound bow into an archery shop to be tuned at least once a year. Depending on how much you're shooting, you'll probably need your string and cables replaced once a year as well. On the traditional bow side of things, there's no need to take it into an archery shop, and you'll be able to operate that bow yourself. If you need a new string, it'll be very simple to replace it at home. Another thing to consider, compound bows need to be set up specifically to the shooter who will be using that bow. That comes down to two main things: the draw length and the draw weight of that bow. Once the draw length and draw weight are set up on a compound bow, it takes a lot to change it and then get the bow to shoot accurately again. But traditional bows have a lot of forgiveness in terms of its draw length and draw weight because it's not set at a certain point. The farther you draw back a traditional bow, the longer the draw length becomes and the heavier the draw weight becomes. So you could have multiple people with different draw lengths shooting the same traditional bow without the need for any tinkering in between. The same is not true for a compound bow because, like I mentioned, there's a lot of things that have to happen in order to change that draw length and draw weight on a compound bow. Are you interested in hunting? Are you interested in target shooting or just shooting for fun in your backyard? When it comes to hunting, and I can speak from my own experience because I am a bow hunter, hunting with a compound bow is a lot easier than with a traditional bow. That comes down to the distance that you're able to shoot accurately with a compound bow, and also just the increase in speed and the technology with different broadheads and arrow setups that makes compound bows a much more lethal weapon, if you will, especially at longer distances, than a traditional bow. Traditional bows, when you're hunting, require a very close distance to your target, which for, I think, obvious reasons, just makes it a lot tougher. Now, it's not impossible by any means, but if your intention of purchasing this bow is to hunt with it, a compound bow will be an easier route. The traditional bow will just take a lot more time and practice. Although compound bows for hunting still require a lot of practice. If you're looking for indoor archery, there are great opportunities for both traditional bows and compound bows. So really, it's just choosing what you're more attracted to. And when it comes to fun, the same is true. Now, like I mentioned earlier, a traditional bow doesn't need to be adjusted for different draw lengths for the most part. If you're just shooting for fun, you'll likely have a slightly lower draw weight that a lot of different people can shoot, and that sort of inherently makes it fun because you can have this bow that you then let your friends shoot and everyone can have fun together. Whereas if you had a compound bow, it really only you can shoot that bow unless someone else has the same draw length as you, and it's just more tailored to just you. But again, if you're just shooting for fun, it's really up to you what style you are drawn to. Now, the last thing that I want to talk about, and it's arguably one of the most important factors when deciding which type of bow to go with, is price. So compound bows are going to be more expensive than traditional bows, especially when we talk about the basic entry-level bow to just get started. For a compound bow, you're looking at anywhere between $300 to $400, and that's including all of those extra pieces of gear like your sight and your rest and your release, etc. For a traditional bow, you could get an entry-level bow for around $100. So it's a more affordable way to get into archery, and it doesn't require as much maintenance as the compound bow, which over time would save you money as well. The last thing I want to say is there is a ton of information available online when you're learning how to shoot a bow. So no matter what type of bow you choose, I encourage you to take a look at the description box down below because I've included links to resources that I used when I was first learning and that I still use to continue my learning into archery. And that is it, my friends. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this video was helpful, and I will see you in the next one.